Good evening everyone, thank you for joining me. So guys, we're going to be talking about the cyber attacks today, and although they happened a couple of weeks ago, there's a lot of information really interesting that's come out, and I've done some digging on this, and guys, you're not going to believe what I found. And again, it's if you want to look into this, but there's a lot of strange symbology around this cyber attack that nobody's even talking about, and I don't think anybody's even connected these dots, because things move so fast at the moment. You know, we've got a site, you know, for example, we had this cyber attack at the beginning of June. This should have been front page news for weeks, but you know, it kind of pales into insignificance because we've got so much stuff happening all over the world. So yeah, let's just begin. So remember, like a couple of days, I don't know when, I did like a top 10 video of the top 10 soft targets that I feel will, you know, that will be hit in the UK as we move closer into these conflicted times, whatever they're going to be called. At number 1, I said cyber attack was the biggest one. I think at number 6, I had the doctors, surgeries, pharmacies, and all that sort of stuff. Now, these are all soft targets, and these are all targets that can, well, I want to say missions, or, you know, projects that can be easily conducted. Cyber attacks can be done from anywhere in the world, and these ones in particular, these ransomware ones, when they do this, they actually get paid for it. So it makes, you know, for an adversary nation, it makes absolutely, no, I've got cramp. Sorry, I'm just fighting through the cramp, guys, and I do that for you. I don't do retakes. Anyway, so we've got we've got these ransomware attacks, which basically they take they take your files, they lock them, they steal them, and they say, okay guys, we've done this, give us a load of money or we're gonna do this. Now, this is a really good way for an adversary nation to do it, because first of all, they're causing problems. And second of all, they're getting some money back from it if people pay. But like all of these soft targets, they can all be done by these criminal gangs. And I remember when I did that video, I said criminal gangs. This will be blamed on criminal gangs, criminal this, criminal that. And as long as we blame this on criminal gangs, everybody's like, oh, those pesky criminals. But as we're going to talk about in this video, you'll see that there's no such thing really as a criminal gang. They're in my opinion, these have to be state sponsored. And the reason they're saying criminal gangs is just not to escalate things. But be under no illusion, at these high levels of MI5, MI6, GCHQ, whatever acronym you want to put on it, these guys know exactly who's conducting, and I'll tell you guys, and I'll give you and they're telling us who's conducting it as well. But yeah, they can all be done by criminal gangs. Again, you know, I'm not going to go into it now, but go check out my other video, the top 10 civilian targets, soft targets. I've got things like electricity, water, gas, infrastructure projects, all this sort of stuff that's a soft target that can be conducted by criminal gangs. So what I want to propose, the question to you guys is, we know about this attack on the NHS, on the doctor's surgery, on, you know, that happened recently. What I want to propose is, how many private companies have been attacked and have just paid? So for example, your bank, has your bank been attacked and they've just said, right, I'm just going to pay, I'm just going to give these guys money? Have MOD subcontractors been attacked and just thought, right, I'm going to pay? Why would they pay? Why would, first of all, well, why wouldn't they ever tell anyone? First of all, they're never going to tell you. Imagine now you are an MOD subcon. Imagine you're an MOD prime contractor. Although prime contractors and your big organisations, they're the hardest ones to attack because they've got the most security. But your prime contractors, so your prime MOD, BAE Systems, for example. BAE Systems, it will be virtually impossible to hack into BAE Systems, and it will. Okay. What about the contractors the subcontractors to BAE Systems? So they still work on the same project, but they're a subcontractor. To win that contract, you've got to have a lot of things in place, and these things that are put in place are expensive. So you will have to have sufficient cyber awareness training or whatever. And the reality is, a lot of these companies, they win the contract because they're kind of cheap or cheaper. And what they'll do is they'll do the bare minimum cybersecurity training. So say, I don't know, Company Joe Blogs wants to work for BAE Systems. So the last minute they put in that they've got all this cyber training, all this cyber defense, all these firewalls. And the reality is they may or may not have them, and they're the easier targets. So the smaller companies that you can get into that then have a wider reach. Now, if these smaller companies are infiltrated and they've just won a big contract, are they going to lose that contract and tell everybody that they've been, hacked? Absolutely not. They're, in my opinion, they'll never tell you. They just pay. They deal with it in house. They're still going to have the effect. The adversaries are still going to have the same desired effect, and they're going to get paid for it. The reality is nobody's going to know. So, there's going to be loss of money because money's going to be lost at some point. The company's going to lose trust. The company's going to lose its customers. You're going to have unhappy shareholders. So all of this sort of stuff is the reason why we won't be told as a nation all of the cyber attacks that are actually happening. Because in my analysis, I think that there'll be a lot of cyber attacks, happening, and they're just not being reported because private companies are paying them. Things like the NHS, they can report them because they're not a private company, and they need to be open about these things. And it's a lot harder to hide things in the NHS of this magnitude. But if this was a private company and only 10 people knew about it, absolutely this would get hidden. Nobody would know about it. They'd just say they were upgrading a system. They're upgrading a system. The software didn't work. Blah blah blah. We're sorry. Blah blah blah. And then that'd be the end of it. They'd never agree it was a cyber attack. So I found this article, and I know it's a bit old. This article, it's from the 5th of, it's from the 5th of June. Let me just read the opening line for you in a few little bits and give commentary, guys. So the opening line, I'll put this in the description. So remember what I said in my previous video. These attacks are going to be done by criminal gangs. So the opening attack: Russian criminals behind hospital cyber attack. So again, it's just, it's money for old rope, in the sense that I've said that this is going to happen, and it's happening. Russian hackers are behind the cyber attack on a number of major London hospitals, according to the former chief executive of the National Cybersecurity Centre. Kieran Martin told BBC Radio 4's Today programme that the criminal group were looking for money. Guys, okay, them looking for money it's a Brucey bonus. So you've got, let's just take this as for face value, but I'll come into that in a minute. Let's just take it, right, you've got a load of, let's just say, Russian military. Just imagine it now. They're all sat there in uniform, on computers, trying to be, it's not going to be like that, but just imagine it. They're all there trying to do an attack. Do they A, do an attack and get no money, or B, do an attack and get paid? They get a bonus. They all get a bonus. Of course they're going to get money. Of course they're going to ask for money. Why wouldn't you get money? It makes no sense. Hospitals declared a critical incident on Tuesday after the ransomware attack affected blood transfusion tests and results. It also led to operations being cancelled and emergency patients being diverted elsewhere. Guys, they are having the desired effect. Can you see this now? These cyber attacks are actually affecting the way we're delivering our critical care, our medicines, operations. And they, as I understand this, they attacked this. They didn't attack the strong point. They attacked a weak point that was critical to the strong point. A serious type of ransomware. King's College Hospital, Guy's and St Thomas's, including the Royal Brompton and Evelina London Children's Hospital. Guys, come on, leave our kids out of it, all right? If there's Russians watching this, don't, just leave children's hospitals and children's stuff out of it, all right? It's off, it's out, they're out of bounds, all right? we understand we're heading towards a conflict. You guys are going to do this. We're going to do that. Then you guys are going to retaliate. We're going to retaliate. In a couple of years, it'll all be over, you know, and we'll just sift through the aftermath and think, well, you know, let's get on with it. You know, that's the reality of the situation. Let's just leave kids out of it, shall we? Mr. Martin told the programme, here we are, guys. We believe, so they believe. They don't know, they believe. It is a Russian group of cyber criminals who call themselves Quillin. Quillin. Q-I-L-I-N. Quillin. Okay, so I did a very basic search on what that word actually meant, guys. And I'll put the link in the bio, guys. Quillin is a legendary hooved chimerical creature that appears in Chinese mythology. Okay, so they're telling it, right, okay, we believe it's Russian, but they're calling themselves a Chinese Russian mythological creature. It gets better. And is said to appear with the imminent arrival or passing of a sage or illustrious ruler. So guys, they're telling us that this Quillin will appear when there's a changeover, when the ruler America, I'm just speculating, when the ruler America is about to pass over or hand over the baton to a new country. I don't know, China. They're telling us who's doing it, guys, here. And I can't believe nobody's connected these dots. I'll put the link in the description for you guys to have a look at. It goes on and tells you more about, the Quillin and all sorts of stuff. But basically, it's a Chinese mythological creature that appears when a leader's about to croak it. Absolutely insane. Now, let me keep reading on this article, guys. Quillin, he said, the Russian group operates on the dark web, operating freely from within Russia. Now, I'll come back onto that later, guys, because there's a lot more stuff. When we start to connect all these statements that people are saying with when we connect all these statements and all these dots and all these things that are actually happening, it becomes so obvious what's happening. So they call themselves Quillin. The cybersecurity experts explained the group had previously attacked automotive companies, Australian courts, and the big issue. I don't know why they'd attack the big issue. So you see the tentacles now being pushed forwards. So do we really believe that there's no connection there, guys? Do you guys really believe that there's no connection here between Russia, China, and again, I'll even throw in North Korea there, guys, okay? Because Vladimir Putin's been to, he's been to North Korea. So what are they talking about in North Korea? Are they talking, well, I'll come on to that. So when you think about these cyber attacks, they're done in bot farms. So basically, a bot farm would be where you have a load of people in a room, in an office, and they just have, each person will have 10 social media profiles, 10 emails, 10 phone numbers, and then from those phone numbers, they'll make up as much social media as they can, and then they just go out there and they just probe and they try and get as much information as they can off people. They also run software from social media so it can scrape information in, and all that information then gets put into a centralized algorithm, and they have a huge they have a huge amount of information they can draw from. These things, when you're setting them up, they need money up front. They need investment. Under no circumstances, well, not any I've met with, under no circumstances do I feel a bank is going to say, right, Sean, imagine going on Dragon's Den. Right, yeah, right, listen, Dragons, I've got this idea. Me and my mates, we're going to set up a hacking company. We're going to employ a load of people. We're going to do a load of hacking, and then we're going to ransom money back. Can you imagine what they'd say? I don't believe this is ethical, and for that reason, I'm out. So you see where I'm going, guys, right? So these things have to be state-sponsored. So I don't really believe that, these things are, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't believe these are criminal gangs. Yes, by the definition of criminal, but I believe those criminals are also state-sponsored. So it's kind of like that thing where they say, not every ragabond is a thief, but every thief is a ragabond, or something like that. It's a strange way of doing it. So also with these ransomware attacks, you get a huge amount of data loss, and with this data loss then being published and then being given to the public, this data is then our data is out there free for anyone to take. So you can then assume that because there's more data out there for more people to exploit, then there's going to be more cyber attacks coming because they've got more information now to work against us. But that's just the reality of the way we're moving forwards in the world. Which brings me on to, as I stopped talking about it earlier, Vladimir Putin and his trip to North Korea. So remember now when Putin said, like a couple of days ago, he reserved the right to supply his allies with arms that could potentially be used against the West. Well, we're all thinking rockets and bombs, but could this supplying with arms, could this be the cyber tools, the apps, the algorithms, the ones and zeros, that anyone can then conduct these cyber attacks? So is it really a case of Vladimir Putin's going to North Korea, and are we going to see an uptick in cyber attacks as we move forwards? So let's just think now, the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Let's just, a criminal gang from Brazil did a cyber attack. A criminal gang from India did a China attack. A criminal gang from South Africa did this cyber attack. It can't. On the face of it, you're like, oh yeah, criminal gang from South Africa. Equally, I think you've got Egypt, Iran, Ethiopia, United Arab Emirates, also now part of BRICS, and there's another 59 countries waiting to be, to be inducted into the BRICS nations. So can you imagine? Iran, a criminal gang in Iran conducts cyber attacks. You wouldn't think anything about it. It would just go absolutely unnoticed. But can you see now, if all these nations then consolidate their cyber capabilities, their cyber offensive capacity, then we can see an absolute shutdown. Imagine if all the hospitals were targeted, all the transport, all the internet servers, everything at once, and it all went down. We would be in absolute chaos. And these things that they can do, they're relatively cheap. They can be done from the safety of their own countries, and you can blame them on criminal gangs. So, if a criminal gang from Brazil attacked the UK's hospitals, and a load of people, unfortunately, tragically lost their lives because they couldn't do operations, because systems were frozen, because they couldn't get information or whatever. The Brazilian government would say, well, it was criminal gangs. We'll look into it. Yeah, we're gonna look into this. We're gonna we'll figure this out for you guys. Nothing, there's nothing. There's no counter to this if it's coming from criminal gangs. As well, Argentina, I've said this so many times and I don't want to go into it because I want to do a dedicated video, but Argentina's a key. I don't know where they're going with BRICS. They've been invited, they've refused, they're buying F-16s, they're talking about the dollar. The reality is, at some point, Argentina is going to have another attack at the Falklands. It's inevitable. Whoever controls the Falklands controls Antarctica. Whoever controls Antarctica will be the world's biggest superpower because of the amount of oil down there. Now let me just read something quickly about the BRICS nations, guys. I'll just read you this. And I'll put you the link in the bio description as well. So this is from the Carnegie reports. So the difficult realities of the BRICS de-dollarization efforts and Remby's role. So for those of you who watch my other videos, one of the key cornerstones and key policies of the BRICS nations is de-dollarization of the world. And the way they project this, the way they pitch this, it seems fair. State nations will trade in local currencies between nations, but As the BRICS bloc expands, efforts by BRICS policymakers to increase global use of non-dollar currencies, particularly the Chinese renminbi, are accelerating. Washington should take note of how frustrations with the dollar are helping enable the rise in emerging markets and motivating strategic partners like India to push for greater use of non-dollar currencies. So what they're talking, when's the article? So this was last year. So what they're talking about there is sanctions. So countries that trade in dollars, they can be sanctioned a lot easier. And when you've got, emerging nations, emerging pacts and trading blocs, they don't want to be sanctioned. They just want to get on with their lives. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. For example, whoever, it doesn't matter. But if you're an emerging nation and you're just finding your way in the world and you're moving forwards, you're looking after your people, you're doing whatever you can, and all of a sudden America says, right, we're going to war. And they say, whoa, hang on a minute, we're good. We're good. We've got no military. We don't want any military. All we want to do is build infrastructure projects and look after our people. And America's saying, right, sanctioned. You're like, man, right, we're going to war then. So what you see is these sanctions that America are putting on everyone, all they're doing is pushing other people towards BRICS. And guys, this reason in itself is going to be the biggest escalator of these conflicts. And I've said this from day one, you've got to follow the money. And again, not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor. But you've got to follow the money and see where people are putting their money and where they're spending it and where the money's going. And again, not to go back onto the Falklands, but Argentina's they're looking to buy a load of amphibious assault vehicles, beach landing craft. Why? Why do Argentina need them? They're gonna have a war with Brazil? No, they want to take the Falklands. But anyway, guys, so that's the reality of the situation as we move forwards. On a recap, so the cyber attacks that have been last week in the UK, it's only a sign of things to come. They are working. They're doing exactly what they want to do, and I feel this is just the tip of the iceberg. I feel there's so many more cyber attacks that have been happening that we just don't know about, because I feel companies will just pay because of they don't want to they don't want to lose money, trust, or customers, and that's the reality of the situation, guys. So I'm going to go now. I'm going to mag to grid, and I'll see you later.